Hey, everybody, welcome to Foundation and Family, where we talk about everything real estate related and about our faith and family. So, today, our episode is going to be an update on Panda, our service dog, because we've had such an overwhelming response regarding her. And who better to talk about Panda and our service dog than my favorite guest?
Yeah, and we've had an opportunity to kind of have a pre-discussion before having this discussion. So, I mean, that pre-discussion was pretty rich. I can't wait to talk here about what's going on with the update. So, okay, why don't you start off with where we are now in the timeline of having Panda?
Well,
How old she is?
okay, so she's one. She's officially one. And we have had her now for what, 3.5 months, you'd say?
Yeah.
3.5 months. And so we made the decision to have her 1 year trained out at the facility in Idaho. Um, we were supposed to go out there as a family and integrate with her for a week or two, but unfortunately, at that moment in time, it just wasn't in the cards for our entire family to go out there and spend a week because it just wasn't in the cards.
Well, and that would have been the sweet spot. The sweet spot would have been the family together, all of us with the dog and the breeder slash trainer, and all of us learning the commands together, all of us being in sync with how to treat the service dog when she got home. And she's spectacular. She's the best behaved dog that we've ever had,
Yeah, she's
bar none.
actually right here, but we'll get her up in a minute. She's doing her best to just be perfect.
And that's what she does at a restaurant, on an airplane, at
So
parties.
let's
I mean, it's a beautiful thing, but yes.
let's go through that though. So okay, we did not have the luxury of spending that week out there integrating. So I flew out immediately. I got her. I spent the day with her and her trainer. And then I flew back. And that went well. It went so well. I remember actually going through security at the airport and I was shaking. She was steadfast, looking forward, and went through security. And I was shaking, like, oh my gosh, like this is so
Well,
scary.
because you didn't know how she was gonna behave. You
No,
also didn't know how to address people who wanted to say
no.
hi to her. There's a whole world of learning that takes place.
Right. And
I also wanna add one more thing. Because you guys shared that experience of you getting her from her breeder/trainer, slash trainer, right? Sharing the experience of getting on an airplane together and then flying out to us, I think you guys bonded in a
sure,
way that's seared on her personality now that she has attached to you.
100%. And we did know that even though she was going to be Oliver's service dog, he is not old enough to give commands. So they say basically, like, I am the handler and I direct her what to do with him. Now, fast forward. Well, let me tell you about the journey actually. So we get on the plane, we come back, we get off, we get back on because there's no direct flights from here to Washington State because we really picked her up in Washington State. She was so stoic. She was so amazing. And they had already told me that she really doesn't like jumping in cars. And that's just kind of her thing. I was like, okay, but I mean, we got on the plane, we got off the plane. Was so perfect, just didn't do anything wrong. And we get to the valet because I had valeted at the airport that morning or the day before or whatever. And I get my car out, and it's been, 12 hours of travel now from Washington State and switching planes because we had an issue with the plane in Denver or something getting back. So I get her up to the car and she just sat straight down. And I was like, girl, we're almost done. You got to get in this car. And she was like, no, my journey stops here. And I was like, no, girl, you got to get in the car. And she was like, no. So then I look like the fool picking up this service dog that's highly trained. And I'm like shoving her in the car. And I'm like, I'm breaking her. Like I'm ruining her. But it was like 1 o'clock in the morning. We had originally intended on landing much earlier. So I'm messaging the handler and she's like, you just have to pick her up and go. She doesn't get to tell you no. And I was like, oh gosh. So that was a little challenging. But when I got home, obviously our house was all asleep. The baby, we all know this was because he doesn't sleep. So he would go to sleep in his room and then he would mosey through the hallway to get to our room. And she was asleep in our bedroom floor that night because it was just easier to do that. And I think she had had a long, stressful day. So when the baby moseyed through that, she kind of growled. And we were like, "Ugh." And it was kind of a big deal in our room that night because the baby screamed. He wasn't expecting a dog there.
Well,
especially
and
when that
this
growled.
dog is supposed to be for him, and
Right.
so the dog growls at him, so now we've got a weird scenario going on with
Yeah.
their friendship, which I think has gotten great.
Yeah.
Uh,
But it was just a lot in that 24-hour period, and we were thinking, "Oh my gosh, like, what just happened? What did we do?"
okay, so let's fast forward because
Okay.
right now we are sitting here with Panda.
Yeah.
She is as well behaved as she is. She still needs ongoing training.
Right.
I think it would be silly. Well, and I say this for myself to think that once the dog is okay, has gone through school, that's it. That's the way the dog is going to behave. But I mean, I think about even myself, how I need continued training in my profession. And so we have yet to be able to find a trainer that we can lock down to do this training on an ongoing basis.
Mm.
It's important that we pick the right one
Right.
who understands this type of training. It can't just be any behavioral training.
Right.
This dog understands and knows how to do specific type of pressure
Right.
therapy. So you got to find a trainer that knows how to do those
A
things.
service dog trainer, not just behavioral and manners. And so that has been way harder than I would have ever thought coming out here to finish that year.
Because though those specialists are busy and
They
they're
are.
booked.
And a lot of them I'm finding work for nonprofits. So we would be a for-profit case because we would be paying because
Right.
those dogs that are in the nonprofit are then being donated to like a service vet or whatever the case may be. And so that's been hard. Now we have located two. One schedule is incredibly hard. And then the other one that we've located uses electronics. And she came from a facility that doesn't use electronics. And so I have major reservations about using electronics because she was never trained on electronics. So,
Well, and let's be honest. There's a good audience that does not believe in electronic training, right? And that means the shock collars,
well, hold
which
on.
today's shock collar now comes with all different types of settings. It could beep, it could
Yeah.
vibrate.
And that's what the one company said. They said it's a TENS unit. It's not a shock collar. So they were like, you're thinking this electric shock. It's a
Right.
TENS unit like you would see at the chiropractor or what have you. And
And some of that does make a difference, right? If it's not the
sure.
shock.
But she said, now, if you need an EpiPen, like if it's your service dog and you need an EpiPen and you say, get my EpiPen, and it kind of is like, well, I'll get there. And you have to say it 4 times, you might be dead. Whereas if they're trained on electronics and you say, I need my EpiPen, they're going to run and go get it. And that's retrieval. So in the camp option that we're discussing, and we don't exactly see eye to eye on this, so you'll get to watch this unfold. Um, there's a camp option back here in town where we drop off at 8 a.m. I love the idea. We pick up at 5. It's 30-minute on, 30-minute off, 30-minute on, 30-minute off for training. And that will really work on her retrieval process so that we can make sure that she's retrieving the specific items that we need because she was trained on certain retrievals, but not exactly the items that we need for all of her. So you don't like the idea of camp.
No, I don't like the idea of her going away when we can have somebody come to the house. And, at this point, because of the amount of money that an animal like this spends or costs, I don't want to skimp on anything else. So even if that's a premium price to have somebody come to the house, I think the family needs to know how to treat Panda too out in public.
Yeah,
And how to treat
100%.
her in the house. Because so this is where we have a big argument too, is if we have this dog in our house, it is impossible for me to not treat the dog like a dog when she's not in service, right? So that means I love to cuddle. I love to belly rubs, all those things that you do with an animal in your house, right? And we're having this conflict because I guess she's not supposed to be treated like that. Apparently, now, in fact, Erica has had more exposure to the actual trainers telling her what is appropriate and what's not. I'm only coming in with my ideas. So that's the number one thing that Erica will tell me is, well, these trainers, they say that she can't be treated like that at home.
So hold on, that's not what I said. If she's in service and she's working and she's got a vest on, you shouldn't be laying on the floor rolling around with her and trying to get her.
Agreed. So why am I not allowed to roughhouse with her at home? And I get it, maybe not roughhousing because I say that and anybody's going to be like, oh, well, that's going to make her aggressive. That's not what we're doing. But the other day I said, well, I had some chicken in the living room on a little table where I was watching TV and the chicken was gone. Only one in the house was Panda. And
So
you said, see, we can't be treating her like a regular dog because then she's going to do regular dog things. And I'm like, how is that my fault? Because I give her belly rubs that now she eats. So there's just things going on that I'm like, I need someone to tell me how to treat. You know what? It would even be great to know from our sheriff officers, those people who are in service who have dogs that are literally work dogs. And then you get home, you take the vest off. Do you still treat that dog like a regular dog and you love on them? Or
but
do you treat them like a robot?
I think there's a difference between, like, she's been trained to go to restaurants and to sit under the table, and at her young age of 1, it's gonna be really hard for her to understand, "I'm in service right now, I'm at home right now, I can have table food, I can't have table food," like, so I think that's a really hard one because instinctual dogs, right? So I think that there are certain things that we can treat her like a dog, but I guess back to, we need that trainer that can come and train the family, because immediately out in public, all the kids were like, "Oh, da, 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 da," and then I was like, "No, in public, y'all have to ignore her
As
because
soon as she's
she."
got the vest on, right, and I'm in agreement because I think some of my deputy friends who are canine officers, as soon as that vest goes on, those dogs know. They change. Their mentality changes, which is why I have an opinion on how she should be. When that service vest goes on, she should know. It's the same thing as like when a doctor throws on his freaking scrubs and his jacket, he mentally knows he's in service, right? So same thing with her.
So are you saying,
When we say release, which is one of the words that we were given,
right.
which she's probably like, I can't do. Well, she's laying now. She's actually sleeping right now. So, but that's one of the words that you give to let the animal know you're done working today. Chill.
Or for this moment.
So that's the way it should work. Is as soon as she's home and she doesn't have that vest on, she should be in the freedom to get belly
But
hugs
I
and
guess let's ask, the viewers and stuff like that, like, any of you have a service dog, how do you differentiate work time versus not work time?
I
Because
would love to
again,
know.
we're
Yeah,
not the expert here. We've never claimed to be the expert here. We've actually had a huge learning curve with this. And something that the facility told me was, it may not work. And she really is like a fifth child. And I kind of was like, I mean, how is she like a fifth child?
for real,
I'm here to tell you,
for
she is
real.
really like a fifth child. I have to be cognizant of her food, her water,
Yep.
if we're traveling, her feet,
Where
her
she's at all
feet are
times.
so big that I had to order an extra, like, the wrong size for her feet, because if she's out on the pavement, like, just so many things that I guess I didn't think into it. But then because she is so heavily attached to us, there's this other side that just kind of organically comes with it, and if she's left alone, she absolutely has anxiety. So that's one of the things that they will work on back here, is building her confidence. And I met someone the other day that I was like, "I think our service dog needs a service dog." And they were like, "You know what? That's funny. We got our service dog a service dog." And I was like,
Which is not happening for
"Ugh,
us. I wanna
it's what."
look at every freaking camera in this room, and I wanna say this is not happening for us, that we're getting a service dog for the service dog. But I think that these conversations are valuable, so this way, when you do get a service dog, you do understand that it is a real animal. It's a real animal that has its own thoughts and, it has its own, behaviors and, won't exactly do what you ask it to do. You know, on the same topic of some of my deputy friends, so I get the fortunate position to have friends that are both canine officers and they're also horseback officers. And when I do interviews with them, those are the hardest jobs for them to do. It's not watercraft, it's not helicopter, it's not street patrol, it's working with an animal because you don't know what that animal is thinking. And that animal, even though you've gone through all sorts of trainings and different scenarios, that animal in the time when gunshots are going off, that animal may not behave the way you want it to behave. And so that is true with this animal too. I mean, there may be a day where it is our service dog, and because it's the 4th of July, she runs off. I mean, that could happen. It
Yeah.
hasn't happened
I
yet,
mean,
but
it hasn't. And she was trained around loud noises and stuff like that, because Oliver, part of his unique abilities is he can be very loud in a very intense moment. So she was trained with little ones. So
And that was on purpose.
Yeah,
Because of the type of service dog that she is, like she's specialized, which is again why it's been hard for us to find a trainer because she is meant to provide him comfort, say 4th of July. She is trained to hear gunshots and stuff like
yeah.
that. If we were to take her hunting with us, so she should behave
Now,
in a
wait,
way.
let's digress. If we were to take her hunting, she wouldn't be a hunting dog. She would just be on that adventure with us. I want to be clear so that no one gets their panties twisted that we're going
Yeah.
to hunt her and run her on hogs and stuff.
Hey, side story.
Yeah.
We did have a Walker Hound, and that was
Yeah,
our
we did.
hunting dog.
Yes, we
And
did.
she was proficient, meaning at a very young age, we were able, with a couple deer that I harvested, able to train her so this way she would be able to scent a deer that had been shot. And this dog was amazing at it and great to have on the hunt club property. Now, she was on a shock collar. And
Electronics. I think that's a better word.
okay, she was on an e-collar because with those type of dogs, their senses can be so heightened in the moment, in the wild moment of chasing an animal down, that if, for instance, she was to go after a wild hog and that wasn't our target for the day, but because she is a hunting dog and I wanted to get her attention 60 feet away, there's no way that even my whistle could do it. So that's when I would say an e-collar for a
Well,
hunting dog, a dog that you have to get their attention because they're locked in.
yeah. Well, and the one facility, they gave the example of service dogs that are working in Arizona, and they run up on rattlers a lot. And so they will I didn't understand the story at first, but she was like, they'll get a rattlesnake and they'll put a muzzle on it. And I'm like, wait, is this real life? You're putting a muzzle on a snake? I'm like, why would you do that? And she was like, because we want the dog to get up to it and they will light it up with an electronic because it can kill the dog. It can, and if the dog dies and
Sure.
then the owner, like it's like a catastrophe. So I've never seen a rattler with the muzzle, but I would like
Whose
to.
job is it to put the muzzle on
I
the
don't know. I don't know. And maybe I misunderstood the story, but I was very perplexed by the whole thing. And then
How would
finally,
they
I don't know.
how would
But they
okay.
literally they get the dog up. So when they get it up there, they do use electronics very heavily in that moment. And so they become very aware of if they pick up that scent or if they pick up that sound, they immediately go the other way because that is a life or death situation. And I was like, hey, I can handle that type of electronics. I just think for the everyday, like, go get me the blanket, go get me this. And that other facility that we were talking about, which I understand that they create amazing animals, they also want to take her for 2 weeks, and that is really hard for me to think of them taking her for 2 weeks.
Well, and then for me,
Two full weeks
and
overnight, everything.
when I get it, there's a professional out there who knows more than I, but how does that help us with our bonding with her and being
Well,
able to give
again,
her
hold
commands
on,
if somebody else is the one that she's considering the authority figure out
hold
at the
on.
center?
I do not wanna talk and we haven't named that company, but they with that camp and with that overnight, there are house visits that are included in those prices where they come and work with us. And had we had picked them, which I kinda think in hindsight for our next service dog, um, they would be an excellent option because as you start to get to a certain age with the dog, you parent or child, whoever is requiring the service dog, are absolutely integrated into weekly training while they're still in training and at that facility.
Right.
So that would have been tremendous. But obviously, with us getting a dog in Idaho, which ultimately I picked up in Washington, but that wasn't a weekly option for us to have weekly training, right? Because, and then keeping her for 2 years, which they do, we had reservation of the bond between Oliver and her. So this was a thought out process. There's not like the perfect way to do it, but we did it the best way we did. But now I will say we are having a little bit of trouble finding the right fit for us, her personality, and what Oliver needs moving forward. So that has been challenging.
Well, what I do love is that their bond right now between Oliver and the dog is it's pretty cool because Oliver sees the way that I love on the dog.
Yeah,
He loves on the dog the same way,
he
which
does.
I think helps their bond.
It does.
And so there will be more. This is, I mean, it's only 3 months in. I mean, it's not like this is a catastrophe. I mean, we're just
No.
sharing the story as the journey unfolds.
Yeah. But I think one of the other hard things for us, and we touched on this the last time, is we really needed more training than we got because we have to protect her. And that was one of the things one of the trainers came in and said to me is that she knows when she's working, she doesn't really want to engage with you because she's been trained not to engage with you. So when we allow that, we actually diminish her confidence in us. But if we just step in front of the person and her and say, no, thank you, she kind of can sit back and say, hey, mom took care of it and be confident in her job. And when she explained it to me like that, I said, oh, she's looking to me for authority and direction and
Sure.
protection. And I wasn't giving her that because I was like, yeah, you could pet her or no, you can't. And I've gotten better in the 3 months about taking her out and saying, no, I'm sorry, she's working. You can't pet her right now. She's working. So that's gotten
Well, and
better, but it was
sometimes that
hard.
works. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes even with close friends,
Yeah.
you'll tell them that she's working and they're like, "Oh,"
It's the
and you're
wildest
like,
thing,
"No, well."
actually. Yeah. Some people will literally be like, "Oh, she's a service dog." And I'm like, "What just happened?"
I mean, there could be worse things.
Yeah, yeah, but it's a whole different world, and I think my advice to anybody that's looking to get one is that it really is like another child because you can't just crate it and leave it home like you could maybe a domesticated regular pet, and that's not what you would have it for anyway, but it
So let's
yeah.
talk about some of the things that she's trying us with at the house. Okay, because
Well,
right now she is trying us, right? Just like a kid will test their parents, she's testing us with things like she's not allowed on the couch. She's never been allowed on the couch.
yeah,
And now she's starting to put her two paws on the couch and starting to get up like this, where she's like, I'm halfway on the couch. And the whole family, I mean, it's actually pretty funny. I'm
yeah.
surprised she hasn't tried to jump in bed yet.
She
Uh,
hasn't, but I
she is
know she
coming by the
wants
dinner
to.
table when we're all having dinner. After we say our prayer over the dinner, it's funny. Her little nose is sitting right there too, and we're like, "This is new." The
Yeah.
fact that she ate the chicken the other day off of my plate. Now, mind you, we don't eat in the living room, so that's partly my fault because that's kind of her boundary space. And but that plate was cleaned off. So I mean, there are some fun things that are happening where I'm like, "Oh, okay, so she's still a dog."
Yeah,
She's still a
100%.
dog at the end of the day, and she's still gonna try to take advantage of whatever she can, especially if we've loosened the reins
But
on her being a service dog.
she's really good at the word no. She really is. So I can be clear across the room. And so she will get up and try to like little counter surf a little bit, put her nose up, and I'll say, no. I don't really want to yell at her right now. And I'll say her name and then I'll say, no. And she'll be like, yep. And then she'll go away. So I feel like she listens to no much better than our children.
Come here, get up.
Hold on. Let's see if she'll get up.
Oh,
Come on.
oh, here.
Oh,
Release. See, she's got this thing on. So let's see if that helped with that.
come, come, come on. Oh, here she goes.
Hey, look
Here she
here.
goes.
Who's this? Who's
Here
this?
she goes. I don't know. She might be hard to see. But I think one of the other funny things about her, and this is, I guess, a Bernedoodle trait, they're very vocal. And so she doesn't bark a lot. That's not the problem. But when she lays down, she's like, "Brrr," and it
She
sounds
is
like a
vocal.
teenager when sometimes I'll be like, I'll give her a command and maybe she didn't want the command because she comes to the office a lot. And like I gave her a command the other day. We were in staff meeting. She obliged, she listened, but when she laid down to where she was supposed to go, she went, "Rrrr," and it sounded like this little teenager that was like, fine, I'm going to do it. And everyone kind of looked over and laughed. So, well, what else do you want to wrap up with? We kind of touched on all the things Panda
Yeah, that's it.
and Oliver.
And Bernedoodles, if you're gonna get one and you're gonna get the full size Bernedoodle, they are smelly. And by smelly, I just mean they smell like a dog. Now, if it's a dog that you love, then you don't mind the smell. But
She's not that smelly. She just is furry.
honey, she smells like a dog. I mean, even
Well, she's furry. And I guess I think that's the other thing because of her furriness, which this is new. This is a whole new doodle
yeah, yeah,
breed to us. It's
yeah.
very new. We've had to be really careful with keeping her ears clean because she's prone to ear infection. So that bath and all that, just making sure we've got those ears clean. So, all right. Well, you want to wrap us up?
Yeah, thank you. How do people stay in touch with the journey?
Well, make sure you like and subscribe and hit the follow button below. And till next time.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Hey, and thank you to everybody involved behind the scenes. You guys may not see them, but there's a whole slew of people that we owe a big thanks to make this happen. So,
Yeah, and we do want your opinions and comments and experiences. So be sure to leave them on all of the shorts or the videos because it's really good feedback and it helps us grow.
and it's better if you have experience. Just saying.
All right, till next time. Thanks.